Good morning and welcome to Rising. Happy Wednesday by my count, I think. We've got another great show for you today. Good morning, Lindsay.
Good morning. I see you had a viral tweet last night. I was following along. I see you got something to talk about today. I'm assuming that's what's on your radar.
I did turn it into a radar, double dip, so to speak. Get my thoughts out on social media and also share my thoughts for our YouTube viewers and our live TV viewers.
I'm looking forward to hearing them in full. So let's go. What's on your radar today?
Let's go. Well, how's your mental health, dear viewer? Now, if you happen to be a young conservative, it's probably pretty good. On the other hand, if you're a young liberal, you might be depressed. That might be affecting your worldview. In fact, consider this finding that was reported by pollster Nate Silver earlier this week and went viral on social media after I tweeted a screenshot of it. Not unique observation to me. I was just kind of being the messenger here. Here was the quote: among voters who report poor mental health, liberals outnumber conservatives 45% to 19%. Among those who report excellent mental health, conservatives outnumber liberals 51 to 20. So the young men that Democrats are having trouble with aren't necessarily the ones who've been captured by the conservative manosphere or who are looking for a helping hand. Rather, it's those who report relatively high mental health and see Democrats as being too neurotic and perhaps constraining their opportunity to compete and reap the rewards of their work. End quote. Well, the political implications of that is that progressive messaging about how bad and unfair everything is maybe won't work to win back Gen Z men who just voted for Trump. That message is cringe. It's female-coded, it's hectoring, nannying. Conservatives are winning the culture battle, on the other hand, because more and more positive and forward thinking is a worthwhile message. Forward thinking about our economy and our country. Just think of the sayings associated with young men these days. Dudes rock. Let's effing go. It's cool. It's chill. It's fun. It's aspirational. Democrats want to build their own liberal Joe Rogan. Remember that idea? It'll need to be somebody who channels that vibe rather than the relentless nagging and negativity of the left. By the way, this is a phenomenon I've been chronicling for a long time. When I wrote my first book, which was called Panic Attack, I profiled campus radicals, student activists, other young progressives, and I found out many of them were psychologically not in good shape. They were dismayed and depressed about the state of the world, and big policy questions like income inequality and climate change were making them think the human race was doomed. I remember coming across an article in the Brown Daily Herald, the student paper of Brown University, all the way back in the year 2016. It was titled "Schoolwork Advocacy Place Strain on Student Activists." Oh, it was so much worse than that, not just a strain. Brown students described students having panic attacks, crippling anxiety, depression, because of how their liberal activism was affecting them. The paper quoted one campus activist who used ze/zer pronouns as saying that a panic attack had caused them to miss classes for several days. Now, look, we're talking about elite, affluent college students nearly a decade ago. They're not a representative sample. But they are cultural tastemakers. Their preferences and their politics have impacted elite culture for the last 10 years. And that impact was utterly dominating as what came to be called woke cultural values. They took over media, entertainment, athletics, etc. What we are living through now, right now, is a backlash to that. Young people, in particular young men, well, they're repelled by these politics. They want nothing to do with the depressive and demoralizing attitude, this mindset of fun-killing failure. And for better or worse, that mindset is what the Democratic Party is associated with these days. Not a lot has changed in 10 years.
Self-reporting. Always so reliable.
Yeah.
Let's start with the obvious. This was
Yeah.
a self-reported study.
Yeah.
So in our country, there's a social stigma attached to mental health, particularly when it comes to men.
Only 20%. That's true anymore?
Yes, only 20% of men actually receive any therapy or mental health services, which we know can be beneficial to all. It's not a woke idea. It's actually studied in research that if you have an outlet that's not your family or friends, that you can actually benefit from that. So perhaps there's a lack of self-awareness in the study.
Do people go to therapy and get better?
I think so, but
But
a self-assessment is not a clinical evaluation, is what I'm saying. And so this is just people having to admit whether they want to look internally. It's a little bit of altruism there. Like, no one actually is acknowledging the elephant in the room, that perhaps maybe you're just not acknowledging that you maybe should talk to somebody or have to decompress. I also don't think it's a bad thing that you're saying some liberal people have this empathy for the world. They think about the people who are most vulnerable and maybe are attached to those causes, like providing Medicaid for a large group of people, or caring about people who are going to be affected by the implications of removing USAID. So yeah, there might be a little bit more down in the dumps when they consider those things. But the empathy is not a bad thing. That doesn't mean you can't come out of that and have other thoughts. And so I think there's a lot of problems in this study. It's not like a blanket statement where we can say, wow, yes, this group is way happier realistically because doctors said so, or this group is way
That's fine, but
more sad.
Anecdotally, it completely corresponds with what I see from actual young people of various political stripes. I mean, you're a happy messenger. You talk about your ideas, which are more liberal than mine, you know, with a smile on your face and a positive disposition. I think that's a good thing. The fatalism from so many people I know, and maybe you're not necessarily really on like the far left or something, but the kind of fatalism among very progressive people, just like, we're all doomed. They've totally appropriated therapy speak. I'm not against therapy. I think therapy can be helpful for some people in some situations. I think it can certainly be useful to talk to someone who's a trusted, expert, empathetic person with some background in educating people on their mental health. I am not against doing that. I don't think it should be stigmatized either. In full disclosure, I've talked with therapists before.
So have
There's nothing wrong with doing that. I think there's a naivety in thinking that you can like fundamentally change your personality, that all you're missing is someone you can complain about all your problems to, and then you have this naivety that they're going to tell you that all of your problems are someone else's fault and not yours, and you don't have to do anything to change.
So I'm going to self-report to you. I'm going to self-report to you. You know, social media specifically shows me that there are not an endless number of happy conservatives parading around. Let's take X, for example. People on there demonstrate poor social behavior and emotional behavior all the time. The tirades that they go on, the comments, you understand that. We talked about how X leaned conservative.
Well, go over to Blue Sky. You'll find liberal people doing that.
Okay, but I'm just giving an example. The Blue Sky people are reporting that they are sadder, right? But
yeah, they're really
the X
sad.
people are acting like they're happy, but these comments are showing me a little bit different. Also, if you read the study in full, this is really interesting, and I want to point out, the power of words is important. So when you talk about mental health versus mood, when you change the word to mood, are you in a good mood? The gap completely vanished. So when you talked about overall mood instead of mental health, then conservatives were excellent or very good 48% of the time. And guess what? Liberals were aligning with that, reporting similarly to be in a good mood 52% of the time. So maybe the word mental health has a stigma, and so maybe men are not prone to say, yes, I have mental health issues, as opposed to saying, hey, I'm in a good mood. You can be both. You can have empathy for the world and also be in a good mood. You can have, say you're a little distressed and also be in a bad mood sometimes. It doesn't mean overall you have a terrible life.
Destigmatized discussing mental health. We've gone too far and too overboard with it. And people, particularly on the left, want to associate themselves with mental illness in order to outdo each other in a kind of victim hierarchy that is how you exceed in activist circles. You have to say, I am the most depressed, I am the most traumatized, I am the most triggered, I am the most victimized, and that's how you assert your dominance in liberal elite bubbles. And that has been the trade that we had that environment take over 10 or 15 years ago, and we are seeing the results of that, which is that young men want nothing to do with that.
Well, this is
because they are healthier.
This is not the oppression Olympics. It's just people literally trying to vocalize that they understand the plight of groups around the world. And so if you associate liberals doing that to them being, having mental health issues, I don't think that correlates. People actually are just aware of their surroundings and can look around and say, hey, this is not the best current state of affairs. Mm-hmm. I know this research was done a couple of years ago, so my go-to would be like, look around. A lot of people are probably distressed right now. But since it didn't happen this year, the argument doesn't stand right there. But also a couple of years ago, we were still distressed at the current state of affairs. We just got off of COVID. People are just getting their lives back together. The economy was equally as bad as it is now. So really, it hasn't been a great time in the last few years to have the best, most optimistic view on the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if liberals were still in charge, we'd still be shut up in our homes because there's still someone sick with COVID somewhere, and we'd be on all the same lockdowns, and we'd be even more miserable. So that's, to my mind, that speaks to the need to not have those kinds of policies. Next up, Trump's DOJ says that they are reviewing Biden's pardons. #AutoPen. I think we will discuss that. Stay tuned.
controlled the auto pen? That's a question the Trump administration is raising. The DOJ's pardon attorney, Ed Martin, is leading a review of former President Biden's pardon, something Reuters first reported.
Here is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt speaking out on the issue at yesterday's briefing.
Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the auto pen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years? Perhaps those documents were signed with the auto pen, something that I believe the Department of Justice is looking into. As you saw, Ed Martin made an announcement at the Department of Justice this morning to launch an investigation because the American people deserve answers.
Associate political science professor at University College of London, Thomas Gift, told Newsweek that nothing is likely to come from Martin's probe since the president has unilateral pardon power. He continued, quote, "If anything, the administration risks overreaching. The Trump White House also certainly doesn't want to get in a tit-for-tat over pardons, given that his first term, it was Trump who pardoned multiple U.S. service members accused or convicted of war crimes and a slew of political associates." We know that Trump uses the pardon power to reward his friends, political allies, and rich people who
Joe Biden pardoned his son. He pardoned his son.
It's the wrong tree to bark up is what I'm saying. It's the wrong tree to bark up for President Trump in particular. I don't mind presidents using their pardon power, but I think this is a political distraction. How does this have anything to do with anything else besides keeping Hunter Biden and Joe Biden in the news for a bad reason when you are currently president, so you can continue to blame them on the current state of affairs? We notice that this is the tactic that happens over and over again, and we know that Joe Biden is having a low moment, so Trump is taking the opportunity to kick him while he's down.
Look,
why? When there are plenty of policy things you can do.
Because it was nakedly corrupt, and we're not over it yet. Look, I don't know that investigating this is going to do any good because the president, the person who's in the role of president, has broad power to issue pardons. I am not really even on the side of trying to restrain that power because I believe in criminal justice reform, and I think presidents have used this power in the past to commute the sentences or end the sentences of people who are really egregiously punished. That has been true of Trump, who has pardoned people that I am very glad he pardoned, including Ross Ulbricht, who was someone, the Libertarian Party, who was advocating for being pardoned for a very, very long time, and I am really glad about that. I think Biden's pardoning of Hunter Biden and a number of other people, the preemptive pardons for Democratic officials that might be looked at, and then worst of all, the preemptive pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci, going all the way back in time to an era in which possibly, allegedly, he greenlit the gain-of-function research that might have caused the pandemic in the first place. I think that was one of the most catastrophic and monstrous decisions any president has made in my lifetime. Can anything be done about it now? Realistically, the answer is probably not, and this whole, well, he was not cognitively fit, so maybe it was auto pen or was somebody else, that kind of seems like a stretch to me, frankly. I wish it were the case. I wish we could look at it and undo these things, but I don't know that we can. And Republicans always want to have another investigation, another hearing, another committee meeting because they like being on TV and they like getting favorable clips for on Fox News and Newsmax. And so conservatives go, look at how much they're fighting the deep state and fighting on behalf of Trump. Even though they're not really doing anything, they're just grandstanding on television. So whether anything will come of this, I would not be optimistic, and I would not want to make conservative people optimistic about it. But that is not to say that this is, I share their, not frustration underplays it, I share their outrage at Biden's pardons and some truly criminal or perhaps evil conduct that we can't look at closely because of what he did.
I'm a very consistent person, and just like I told Jasmine Crockett yesterday, I don't think that she should launch another inquiry into impeaching President Trump. I don't think that President Trump should launch any type of investigation into President Biden that's out of office, and he said that he was the worst president of all time. He called him Sleepy Joe. So move on. Why are we deep into your presidency?
What's done is done.
And you're still talking about this. What's done is done. Also, when we talk about like egregious pardons, President Trump pardoned all of the January 6th rioters. And when we talk about AutoPen, right, he said he didn't want to review every single case because it would be too much. It would be too much. So Biden didn't review every single case. That's the argument, that he was on AutoPen, someone else was reviewing it. Well, guess what, President Trump? You did the same thing by pardoning blanketly all the January 6th rioters, some of them who went right back to jail because they had problems and issues and past criminal records and ran into the police again and had the same type of issues where the misconduct put them right back in jail. So maybe if he had taken the time to actually review the people that he was pardoned, then he would affect the criminals who you don't like on the street and keep them in jail, as opposed to putting them back out into society to antagonize regular people who are just trying to enjoy their lives. So I think that this is not a good argument coming from Trump's team.
Democrats trying to constantly get criminals back out onto the street?
No, criminals. I think we're talking about justice reform. Biden, a lot of Biden's pardons focused on criminal justice reform, particularly when it came to low-level offense drug crimes and things like that. I think that that's a different type of category than Trump, who pardons everyone, like a police officer that's taking bribes for roles.
The Kids for Cash judge was back out because of Biden's pardons. That was a pretty egregious
Scott
one.
Jenkins, a Virginia police officer, was taking money for roles inside of a police office. That's not appropriate. The Chrisleys were scamming the IRS. All of his rich friends are scamming the IRS, and he's like, cool, go ahead. What? What do you mean?
The IRS is scamming us by taking too much of our money. Look, everybody's fighting.
Anybody who has shady financial dealings,
possible.
Trump is your guy. If you have a shady financial deal, he got you covered because he feels like you should be able to do whatever you want.
Except for Hunter Biden, your shady financial deals, the guy who's got your back is your father.
Well, I'm just telling you, he is not in a position to argue this. This is like barking up the extreme wrong tree, right? We know that this is not going to go anywhere. And we talk about wasting money and distracting. This is exactly what that is, because there's a lot on the table right now. But the more he keeps Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in the political conversation in a negative light, the more he looks like he came in and was a savior. But really, none of his policies have been enacted in any effective way. People are equally as uncomfortable financially.
Well, it's just
and
unresolved.
So
it's narratively unresolved, because we were beginning to really look at the Hunter Biden stuff, and now that's done. It's off the table.
Well, it's time to move on. It's all good for us, mental health-wise. Move on. Next up on Rising, Elon Musk trashes President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. We'll tell you why. Elon Musk is clearly not happy with the one big, beautiful bill that recently passed in the House.
The tech mogul took to X yesterday afternoon and wrote, "I'm sorry, but I just can't stand it anymore. This massive, outrageous, pork-filled, congressional spending bill is a disgusting abomination. Shame on those who voted for it. You know you did wrong. You know it.
Of course, Democrats feel the same way, though, for different reasons. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett wrote on X in part, quote, Elon calling Trump's budget bill a, quote, disgusting abomination is real rich. You were right there, helping him wreck federal agencies and calling it efficiency. You're just mad because your stuff didn't make the bill. Miss me with the bleep, but you're right. It's a disgusting abomination. Correct.
Kind of buried the lead there. Speaker Mike Johnson responded to Musk's criticisms. He wrote on X that he considers Musk a good friend, but that he was simply wrong. Johnson continued, our legislation comprehensively delivers on every major campaign promise and the America First agenda, while also securing historic savings of more than $1.6 trillion. It's going to keep our border secure, provide historic tax relief for hardworking Americans, unleash American energy dominance, reduce spending, and restore peace through strength. I am glad to see Elon Musk speaking up. No surprises here. I agree with Elon Musk. I think it is a shame that now that he's kind of exiting and going to have less control or power or influence in the government, he is once again saying things I completely agree with. Yes, the bill is a travesty. The bill does not deliver on the America First agenda, no matter how many times Mike Johnson says that. The bill does not cut spending. It massively grows spending. It will increase our debt. We will be even more trillions in debt. It is something that true America First small government people like Thomas Massie and Rand Paul and a few others have been speaking out against for their efforts. They're being, attacked by Trump. They are trying to do, and what Elon Musk is putting into words there is make permanent the DOJ cuts, the trajectory what DOJ was trying to achieve requires a bill that actually constrains spending. This is not that. This is a Biden bill. It's business as usual bill. And at this moment in time, where Republicans actually have control of all three branches of government, and they could actually have legislation that accomplishes what they have run on and cuts government the way they have promised to their constituents year after year they would do, and they're not going to do it. I don't know how they can look themselves in the mirror or how they could expect anyone in the Republican voting bloc to take them seriously, but I guess they're just going to try to mislead Republicans and say, no, actually it does cut spending. It doesn't. It's a lie. Trust Elon Musk. He is right.
You said this is a Biden bill, and really no Biden bill would not cut Medicaid in any way. And so there we have it, where people in the Republican Party are also upset about something that Biden would be upset about. We all knew this was coming, though. The bromance was going to break up between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. It was just a matter of time. And so we're kind of seeing that play out with two strong personalities. They were on the same page for free speech. They were on the same page for deregulation. They were on the same page after culture wars and things that they didn't like. But we see now that they're an opposite spectrum when it comes to financial visions for the future of the country. And that's problematic since the Republican Party is largely made up of people who are voting that consider themselves fiscal conservatives. So, Elon Musk came here and he was considered like the chief financial officer of America. He came here to do what no one had done as a big, powerful outsider that knew finances, knew money, and was going to get our budget down. And it's hard to promote budget discipline within the Republican Party, but then have a bill that's going to up our deficit in the trillions. And I think that also, Elon Musk is grappling with the fact that his legacy might be completely in vain, the Department of Government Efficiency, now that none of the things that he wanted to do are codified into law, now that there's complete silence when Marjorie Taylor Greene goes to the party and asks, hey, how are we going to make these cuts official? And everyone's silent, and then they're passing this bill simultaneously. It looks like the Republican Party is completely in disarray because there's two major different ideas about how to handle our economy, how to handle our budget, how to handle the deficit, and that has to be a top priority for what people ran on. People voted for Donald Trump, but also were appreciative of Elon Musk saying, come in, let's take a look at our federal budget and what we can cut here, what's wasteful spending. They always talk about fraud and abuse. So to bring this new deficit higher almost contradicts every single thing that he was in office for. Why do we waste taxpayer dollars on the Department of Government Efficiency?
It is outrageous, frankly. The Republican leadership They are lying to their voters. Republican leaders are lying to Republican voters about what is in this bill and what they are going to accomplish. A few principled, limited government, America First conservatives are speaking out, and for that they're being attacked by the leadership of their own party. For daring to admit the emperor has no clothes, this will grow the deficit. This is not consistent with what we ran on. And we have no excuse this time because
and the
it's not like
don't add up.
It's not like a divided. It's not like, well, we have the House and they have the Senate or vice versa, so we have to come to some compromise. The usual BS excuse we hear. They have no reason to do that. Or there's a hostile president and they'd veto cuts. No, Republicans have control. They can do what they ran on, and they just won't do it. And their voters will hate them for it and punish them for it. I hope they deserve to get punished. And instead, it's the other way, where they're calling out the few lone voices who are daring to point out that this does not accomplish what we set out to do. It is outrageous to me, absolutely outrageous.
And I think part of the problem is that some members of the GOP are relieved that Elon Musk is out the door because he, had this.
Because he was calling them out.
And
say we're going to actually reduce government spending. We're going to fire government employees. We're going to cut down departments. And they're like, oh, wait, we're actually going to do it? Oh, no, I'm not on board with that. I just wanted to talk about doing it. I wasn't ever actually going to do it. That's what we're finding out.
I'm happy you can call a spade a spade. Is President Trump profiting from his time in power? Well, Don Jr. defends his dad. That's up next.
Is crypto going to be the future of finance? Well, Don Jr. seems to think so.
CNBC host grilled Don Jr. on President Trump's meme coin and compared it to Hunter Biden's art sale. Let's watch.
That your father has creates the opportunity for foreign adversaries, people in the U.S., anybody, if they want, to effectively funnel money
to Hunter's art. It's as bad as Hunter's art or the Clinton Foundation with her getting back into the White House. It just seems like a way that greases the skids for influence.
So I think the meme coin, you don't know who's actually doing any of these things, right? So
that's one of the things that has people on
edge. But it's different because it's hard to influence if you don't actually know where the stuff's coming from, right?
Joe Kernan, host of CNBC's Squawk Box, confronted Don Jr. asking if it is okay for Trump to have a meme coin, and that was Don Jr.'s response.
We got into crypto not because it was like, hey, this is the next cool thing. We got into it out of necessity. We got into it because we understood just how quickly we could be turned off, even as an incredible developer from New York City. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that we didn't change the skyline of New York City, but that disappeared in an instant. I mean, we're getting sued by New York State AG, $500 million fees for paying back loans on time with interest. These aren't, fair markets.
President Trump's meme coin has been heavily criticized by many ethics watchdogs. The New York Times published an article last week writing, quote, "The Trumps are hardly the first presidential family to profit from their time in power, but they have done more to monetize the presidency than anyone who's ever occupied the White House. The scale and the scope of the presidential mercantilism has been breathtaking."
Well, so says them.
I mean, in this interview, he took responsibility for every part of the crypto operation except for Trump's meme coin, which is really convenient. Public power serving personal profit is a big deal. And when we think about the people that could be investing, which is part of the conversation, that could be anybody from any country heavily into Trump's meme coin, yeah, it's anonymous, so we don't know who it is. But if somebody picks up the phone and says, hey, I put $2 million in your meme coin, do this for me, come over to the Middle East and do this for me. That is called quid pro quo in exchange for power. Like maybe he's just going to call Don Jr. and say that.
Very naive to say.
No, that's not naive.
Trump
People do this all the time. That's
degree.
His company. So he's directly.
Well, he's the president, and he's also a very successful businessman with lots of financial and business interests all over the globe. There's no way to untangle that because the government has tons of regulatory power that does impact his businesses. There's just no way to get around that. The American people were fully aware of that when they put Donald Trump in the Oval Office for a second time. I think they're aware that his businesses may benefit from or be harmed by or be affected by government policy. That's the reality of having a businessman be in charge. But with crypto specifically, yes, it's anonymous. They can't prove exactly who's coming in, so that makes direct influence less important. And I, frankly, am glad to have someone in the White House who understands and thinks crypto is good and important and wants to regulate crypto in an industry-affirming way, rather than the Biden team would have strangled it in the crib for lack of understanding of it and just a knee-jerk desire to regulate and destroy new technologies. So I'd rather have someone who knows, who kind of understands it, who's in the crypto game as we move into this important regulatory phase for crypto.
Trump's family profits from every single trade of crypto, and I think that he's making huge policy decisions on the same crypto that he's regulating, and so obviously he's going to do it in his favor as a businessman. You're not telling me that he's that neutral and by the book that he's going to avoid making policies that directly affect him. Exactly. So when he gets into meme coin, it seems intentional. He's like, oh, we got into this by desperation. No one would loan us money. I doubt that. I think they got into crypto because they saw it advantageous, and they thought that if Trump wins, that this would be a good moment for them to not only regulate this new currency in a form that benefits them, but also profit tremendously after he leaves office, just like they will with this personal private plane from Qatar.
Was the House Speaker and was the person most directly in charge of crafting legislation around tech issues. She represents Silicon Valley. Her husband owns stock in Facebook. I mean, this is a much more direct and obvious potential corruption problem. They'll thwart every time. I would be fine. I support.
So corruption is good if you do it in front of our face, is what you're arguing. Corruption is good if we can see you doing it plain as day. That's good corruption. And Nancy Pelosi is bad.
I'm saying there's all sorts of behind the scenes. I would also prefer no corruption, and I support, as do most of the American people, Stock Act or the Pelosi Act or whatever they're calling it these days, to prevent stock trading among people in Congress. I support that. That was something that was blocked by Republicans and Democrats, by Nancy Pelosi. I think that would be a good idea. I think that is where more obvious corruption, more obvious that it is corruption. It's more discreet and secret, and that's the problem. With Trump, everything is, you see the transactions, and you're allowed to decide whether this is what you want for our country, and the American people said yes.
But he's not a dictator. We don't live in that type of government. So if there's one rule for Congress and people that are employees in that arena, there's
no rule for Congress. The rule for Congress is do whatever you want.
If they're pitching that this is a great job and a rule for the future of Congress for them not to be trading things that they're actually making rules on, that's great. But that should also apply to our president. I think we should start from the top down, and our top office should abide by the same rules as Congress. And so if you're going to run for president, take a break from your businesses. I know he says Trump Jr. is running it, but it seems real specific with a Trump meme coin that he's making all this money, and 80% of Trump coin is controlled by Trump-affiliated entities.
The business, but it's just the business is impacted because they have there's just no way. On some level, do you know what I'm saying? There's no way to disentangle.
He's peddling all these coins. He's like marketing for his own business. It's almost like being on a reality show and constantly bringing up your brand that has nothing to do with like the actual content of the show. That's what he's doing. He's making policies and doing work, but also talking about meme coin and hosting dinners and making people pay tons of money to be around him in his crypto conversations. That is directly benefiting from
his real financial asset is exactly what you just said, is his name and the brand. And there's no way to that brand grows in it's worth more, it has more financial power because he's president, and it's just the reality of the situation.
He's just peddling something new every week. First it's Nikes, then it's or whatever, his sneakers, then then it's a coin. Every time it's like the president and scammer. Like, it's just constant something new that he's trying to sell to the American people and trying to make money from, and nobody knows where it's coming from, or accepting jets. And like, we should be able to ask questions. That doesn't mean that we don't respect the office of presidency. It means that we are critical in asking questions about what's going on.
And I don't begrudge the president. I don't care if the president profits or makes money. I care if the president or the Congress or whoever it is crafts legislation and rules and policies that negatively impact businesses that are not owned by him. I care if they do that for whatever reason. I certainly would care if they do it deliberately. I'm not seeing any evidence of that yet. If some commodities that Trump is not invested in get some really punishing regulation, I mean, this is why I oppose the tariffs. I don't want one man largely saying that this industry gets or this country gets tariffs at 50%. Oh, but then this industry, cars or whatever, like, oh, well, we're going to relax it for these industries. Well, then it's going to be nakedly corrupt, because it's then whoever visits the White House and talks to you. Here's why my industry is really important, though. We can't do the tariffs for me. Oh, okay. Well, not for you, but then it'll be for you. Yes, I'm totally against that, which is why I support taking the tariff power away from the president, or actually just having the tariff power the way it was supposed to be designed, which is for Congress. The court just ruled that this happened last week, that the law does not give this power to the president. The emergency power doesn't apply here. So that is an example of corruption I agree is a problem for the executive office. This kind of stuff, it's just
I'm looking forward to the tell-all book. I mean, I hope Jake Tapper is writing right now about all the stuff that may happen in the next 4 or 5 years.
I fully trust our mainstream media to be on every aspect of Trump corruption or Trump-related not good stuff. The media has proven itself very capable. Publishers will greenlight a gazillion books on this subject for every one in-depth examination of Biden corruption, or the fact that the president was not with it for the last however many months or years of his presidency. Next up, the family of suspected Boulder, Colorado attacker Mohammed Solomon. They've been taken into custody, and they could be deported immediately. Stay tuned. family of Egyptian national Mohammed Salman have been taken into ICE custody and risk a quick deportation, according to officials. Now, Salman has been charged with murder after throwing gasoline bombs at pro-Israel demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado earlier this week. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem posted a video about it on social media. Let's watch.
Mohammed's despicable actions will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But we're also investigating to what extent his family knew about this horrific attack. If they had any knowledge of it or if they provided support to it, justice will be served.
Officials say Salman overstayed a tourist visa and expired work permit. His wife and 5 children will be transferred to a Texas immigration facility as they await their proceedings.
The White House posted about the news, writing 6 one-way tickets for Mohammed's wife and 5 kids. Final boarding call coming soon. Georgia GOP Representative Mike Collins replied to that post saying, "Keeping families together." Political commentator Johan Kardachi writes, "You're taking them into custody because they might or might not have known about it. Don't you need a legal reason to take them into custody first?" And attorney Tracy Gallagher said, "ICE didn't do so well, did they? They were too busy chasing high school volleyball kids." Not sure about that. I mean, seems obvious to me that they should be taken into custody and questioned by authorities. They will be. I mean, it's just the reality that if you are here in the country illegally and your close family member commits a horrific act of violent terrorism, you will be deported. I mean, that's just like what is going to happen. I would say they should not be deported too quickly because we need to get to the bottom of this. If they had some knowledge of what he was planning to do, my understanding from reading the reporting is that he was planning this attack for a long period of time. Right. So were there signs that they should have spoken up about? Or maybe they did if they spoke up and those signs were ignored by law enforcement, as often happens in cases of a mass killing or shooting or bombing or something. There were warning signs where people did speak up. We always say, why don't people, be good citizens, be good neighbors? And then it turns out, oh, actually they did contact the officials. The officials just didn't follow up on it. So I want to get to the bottom of exactly what happened. If they had knowledge and they didn't turn over that information, or if they were involved, well, then not only should then a deportation might not even be the right option. It should be prison or prosecution. But once the investigation is satisfied, I have no doubt that they will and should be, deported. If they have absolutely nothing to do with it and had no knowledge of it whatsoever and, have committed no other crime or anything, I guess that's a little unfortunate for them that they're going to be deported probably. It's not, if it is really not their fault in any way, shape, or form, which could be the case, then that kind of sucks, but is kind of reality. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, no, I think everyone's on the same page. This is an evil, outrageous act, and the sympathy for all the families involved. They should absolutely be questioned. That's like a normal standard procedure. Yeah. But we should not absolutely assume that they're automatically guilty by association.
Sure, of course.
So I know that a lot of the comments underneath that White House tweet, or however they sent it out, was very much like, "Get them out right now. 6 one-way tickets tonight." And I think we need to.
Now, hold on, we got to understand what happened here.
No, I know people are riled up. But I think that, we shouldn't politicize this. We should actually try to find out what stemmed from all this. Like, instead of kicking them out immediately, perhaps there's a motion that we would spend time understanding, like, what the motivation behind this behavior was.
Somebody I think we understand the motivation pretty well.
I think for the whole
Israel,
family, right?
He hates Jews.
Right. He literally should go to jail and go through due process and everything. But for the family to really understand what happened there, how could they be so disconnected to watch this happen? Was he in the community? I know he had a work permit, so he's working up until I think mid-year last year, and so he was around a lot of people. Did anybody want to report this frustration? Like, there are things that we do in our process to get to justice rather than just throwing everybody out of here, because then also we have no control of what happens next. And some people might like to see actual justice if the family was involved, or if he was a sole actor by himself who just planned this egregious act. I think that there is a process for a reason, and we should try to follow it, even though it sounds good and politicizing it sounds good to just get them out of here immediately. The family may actually give valuable information to try to, make sure we understand this case in full.
No, I agree with you completely. I feel almost that some people are trying to turn this into an illegal immigration thing when it is more of a Islamic extremism, national security thing. These are not totally mutually exclusive. We should do better vetting, and we should, be deporting people who present some danger, certainly to the people around them, or not having them come here in the first place. He overstayed, what is the process for getting a tourist visa and getting a work permit? Is there any kind of vetting or monitoring done? Were there red flags with this individual who has such a visceral hatred of Jewish people or Israeli people that he threw homemade explosive fire weapons at older people, causing horrific burns? Were there warning signs that should have been followed? Those are all very valid questions that we should explore, and we don't want to preclude any avenues into that investigation by having immediate deportations. But to the tweet person I read, well, why are they being taken into custody? Well, if they're not American citizens, they can be taken into custody and they can be deported. You don't have due process rights, the exact same due process rights. You have some due process because we want to make sure we're not deporting American citizens. We want to make sure we understand charges against you, but the actual Deportation Act is not. You have ironclad due process against, even if you're a non-citizen, against being prosecuted. It's different from just being removed from the country. That's kind of what we're working out with these immigration-related questions. The government can remove people from the country who are in the country illegally if it wants to.
With tragedies like this also, there are real victims involved and real people that are dealing with trauma and suffering after an incident as horrific as this. And I think that it minimizes it tremendously to try to point to what we've been seeing, Biden or something else, and make it an immigration issue when there's so much conversation around what we can all do better to make sure that, somebody came here with a work visa or, overstaying your visa is different than crossing the border and conflating the conversation. And I think now, while we should have that conversation in Congress and get real laws passed that maybe prevents this from happening in the future, we shouldn't try to figure out where to point the finger. We should just come together in unison and in unity as a country and say, this is wrong, and this person will be brought to justice to the full extent of our law.
Yeah. Next up, Taco Tuesday disaster. The Democrats' cringe dig at Trump. That's coming up next.
Hey, Congressman.
Can I help you?
What the is up with Trump always chickening out on tariffs?
Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
California Democrat Eric Swalwell eating Taco Bell at his desk there. That was a dig at Trump, apparently. That's a real sick burn there, Congressman. From the party that brought you Dark Brandon. Dark Brandon was kind of funny. And the winning message, Republicans are weird. That one didn't go over well in my view. The Democrats are now doubling down on TACO, which is apparently an acronym for Trump Always Chickens Out.
The acronym was created in the wake of Trump's Liberation Day tariffs as a catchier version of what Wall Street was calling the Trump putt, a reminder for traders to be less reactive to Trump's high tariffs because of how often he changes or postpones those tariffs, sometimes within hours of implementing them. Democrats are running away with it. Take a look at this. They parked this taco truck outside of the Republican National Committee's headquarters on Tuesday. The custom wrap job shows Trump with a chicken suit with the acronym spelled out. The vendor reportedly ran out of the free tacos it was providing within 1 hour. All this taco talk seems to be getting under Trump's skin a little. Here he was snapping at a reporter in the Oval Office last week.
They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. And you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. Don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question. Go ahead. To me, that's the nastiest question.
Despite Trump's apparent distaste, others in the administration have laughed it off. In response to the taco truck, Vice President Vance wrote on X, quote, "We have the lamest opposition in American history." And in a statement to Fox News, NRCC spokesman Mike Marinella said, quote, "Looks like the Democrats took a break from fighting amongst themselves to stage a pathetic stunt. The most embarrassing part, they couldn't even get the location right. You can't fix stupid." I'm going to say that other people on the right have said this, and they're correct. The left can't meme. I don't see what's funny about this. But you're chuckling over there. So
everybody's laughing but you. I think
funny?
you're trying not to find it funny. Taco, the fact that he's riled up, he got riled up about weird too, and I thought that was funny because Democrats are playing his game. It's like finding a one-liner that sticks is hilarious. Parking the taco truck. They can do this every Tuesday throughout his term. So many tacos. Every Tuesday is Taco Tuesday. It's hilarious, and the slogan is effective and clear. Look at that. Come on. The chicken suit exposes one of his most vulnerable patterns, which is, making bold threats and then kind of like backing down under pressure. This is called overpromising and under-delivering. I know, but
I thought liberals don't want the tariffs.
No, because
I thought
he got
I was
voted
finally
in office.
agreeing with something Democrats were saying for once in my life, that we don't want tariffs. And they're trying to goad him into doing them anyway?
No, they're trying to expose the pattern of bluffing. So the people who may be swayed to his side, which was the argument that many Democrats have swayed to his side. No, because it's not a deal maker. The negotiation is not going well. People have till today to come to the table with what they want to do with these tariffs. And guess what? I've heard crickets. Have you heard anybody say anything today? No, which is what's going to happen. We're going to just change the policy tomorrow. That's been the trend for the last 5 months. That's what's going to keep on happening. It's catchy. It's visible.
Well, you can
it's
criticize
memeable.
Him over this, but it's just not.
But it undermines the deal maker persona. He said he would make a deal on Russia. He said he would make a deal on, he's not making any deals. That's just the fact of the matter. This great businessman negotiator, he can't even make a deal with the Department of Government Efficiency and Elon Musk and what he came in to do and this budget bill. He can't make any deals. We haven't seen one deal.
He's getting it through. I don't.
No, it's not through Senate. It's not getting through. There's people who are senators specifically, like Rand Paul and others, that are like, no to Medicaid cuts, no to fiscal, oblivion that we're pushing forward.
Sure, but I don't really think that's an example of him backing down. The tariffs thing might be an example of him backing down. I think his supporters would say he's just, adopting different postures because that is the deal making that it's some kind of high stakes poker game, and the end result is we want all the tariffs to come down. So he's trying to intimidate other countries into bringing down their trade barriers, and then we're going to bring ours as well. That's like the actual strategy.
But Wall Street market,
regardless, is not funny.
People who work on Wall Street are concerned, which is why they're the ones who led to this conversation that Trump always backs down, and then they made it into taco and made it into this term. But it's just the erratic tariff threats. He's doing it in a way that's not effective because not only did China not come to the table, not only did those conversations not go anywhere, he's the one who ended up lowering the tariffs first. And so that is not a negotiation because China has not agreed to anything that's advantageous for the U.S. So how is it a benefit to the U.S. to keep going back and forth with China and not just have a real adult, mature conversation?
I don't always think whatever the Democrats or the left is doing is not funny. Like the Dark Brandon memes, I actually did think were funny.
This is funny.
I did think those were funny. I don't think it's weird or anything involving Tim Walz is funny or appealing or engaging whatsoever. I can't stand him. I think the memes about J.D. Vance's head which were, I think, initiated by liberal people and then kind of appropriated by people on the right. Those are very funny. You know, the ones with his head gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That's kind of funny.
Maybe I just really like tacos, but I think the overall...
I had tacos last night. They were delicious.
This is a great strategy for messaging.
We talk about homemade tacos.
Well, that's nice. You didn't invite me, but we'll get to that later. You know, this is a great strategy for Democrats. I think that now they need to take this messaging and run with it. We talk about what's effective. So being funny, relating to people, that's effective. Every time Trump bluffs, you tell the working class people how it directly affects them. So for example, if you give the taco a working class spin, when he created the bluffing on tariffs on China, it hurt farmers. They were reactive to it, right? When he bluffed on and teased tariffs in Mexico, one of our biggest allies, it spiked prices for customers. People are paying more at Walmart right now for things from China and Mexico. When he said, don't just mock the volatility of the market, saying I'm a great negotiator, people are concerned about everyday purchases. So he's hurting everyday Americans by his negotiation tactics, and it's poor timing. People are still uncomfortable. Inflation still feels uncomfortable to most Americans. And so Democrats can actually use this as a first step towards a strategy on messaging for the next couple years. And instead of just making and parking the trucks outside and laughing, which I do find hilarious, now it's time to implement some actual conversation around it and then policy that rebukes it, even if it doesn't get passed. It's like we tried, Congress said no, we did nothing about it, and now we need Democrats in office. And that's what they can argue for the midterms.
I hope they park a taco truck outside our lovely Capitol Hill studio offices so we can go get lunch. That's fine with me. It sounds delicious. I just don't know how fun it is, but we can disagree on that. That does it for us on Rising Live. I want to give a special shout out to our director, Alex. It's his birthday, very special.
Alex,
birthday.
happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Alex, yay. And thank you for watching today. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you can find podcasts. We will see you back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Gonna get Alex some tacos.